I'm standing in Tom's Diner in the Watson district of Night City in Cyberpunk 2077, and I want to know, do the NPCs in this game have actual routines? I've been here for 2 days, and this is what I've observed so far. This is Tom. Say hi, Tom. Tom may own this diner, but he ain't doing much else. Depending on the day, he has 2 modes: standing behind the counter like a ghoul, or standing in the kitchen like a ghoul. You can't talk to Tom, you can't shoot Tom, you can't affect change in Tom's life in any which way. And the same goes for this diner's single waitress, Tess, or whatever name the scanner gives her on any given day. She wipes, she sweeps, she takes orders. The closest we ever get to them ever leaving this diner is that once in a while old Tess here steps out for a quick cigarette, then comes back in, pulls the broom out of the wall, and gets back to work. I can murder every patron inside this restaurant, and Tess and Tom could give 2 shits. If I kill somebody where Tess is sweeping, she sweeps the body, and because of that, I rank these 2 as level 1 NPCs. High-functioning furniture. They are basically Roombas wearing human skin. So back to the question, do Cyberpunk's NPCs have actual routines? First, we should define what I even mean by routine. A sequence of actions regularly followed. By that logic, a ceiling fan has a routine, my toaster has a routine. So what I'm actually looking for today isn't routine. I'm looking for life. So I've developed the 4-level Night City Sentience scale to determine if anyone in this neon-soaked hellscape is actually home behind the eyes. Level 1 is the high-functioning furniture, your Toms, your Tesses. If they aren't physically bolted to the floor, they might as well be. They repeat a loop and nothing interrupts it. Level 2, the panic-driven potato. They walk in circles until a gun goes off, then assume the fetal position and wait for the sweet embrace of a despawn. They react, but they don't go anywhere. Level 3, the commuters. The rare NPC with a destination. They put down the mop, exit the building, and navigate the city streets to reach a second location. And then there's level 4, the unicorn tier, the holy grail. An NPC who goes to work, leaves, eats, goes home, and sleeps. Someone whose life continues even when we're not looking. And if this person exists in Night City, we are going to find them. But before we hit the streets, I need to show you exactly what we're up against, which brings us back to my 2 days at Tom's Diner. I want to show you Gweneth. Gweneth is a patron here at Tom's Diner. She pretends to eat her SCOP kebab, then gets up and goes to sit at the bar. She hangs out at the bar for a few minutes, then decides she's ready for another attempt at her SCOP kebab, only to find bald solid snake in her spot, also attempting the kebab. She stands on the seat for a second, contemplating her next move, then walks over here to wait out her table. After a few minutes of that, she moves down the bar to stool number 4. She does this butt lifting animation a few times, then heads back to bar stool number 1. I eventually learned that the mid-air hover is part of her routine, triggered whenever the kebab seat is occupied. But as I kept watching, I noticed something interesting. Bald solid snake and Gweneth have the exact same routine. Both of them are oscillating between the end of the bar, the kebab booth, barstool 1, and barstool 4. For the next hour, I watched these 2 bounce between their 4 paths inside this restaurant. At one point, they go for the kebab seat at the same time, then split for different spots. There's also this woman here in this Carhartt-looking hat sitting at the last booth. She chokes on her coffee and then walks around the entire restaurant and outside for a cigarette. She comes back in, sits at barstool 2, then returns to the final booth seat, and that is her routine. I was curious what would happen if I blocked her path to her cigarette and she punched me in the face. This freaked out the entire restaurant, so I walked across the street, then came back. And when I approached Carhartt again, she had completely forgotten me.
New around here?
Interestingly, when I went back into the restaurant, Bald, Solid Snake, and Gweneth were still keeping up their routines, but I seem to have broken these guys with my antics. This man here turned into a human sprinkler. I then decided to test what would happen if I threatened Gweneth and Baldy with violence. They both ran out of the restaurant in the same direction, further adding credence to my theory that they're on the same path. Eventually, they split paths, so I chose to follow Gweneth, and I thought this was it, a break in the pattern. I hoped maybe she was running home or to a different restaurant. Maybe this was going to change everything. But she just started looping around the market area. At one point, we even passed her twin sister. We passed Tom's a couple times, she joined an impromptu marathon, and as I followed her running with this crowd of level 2 panic-driven potatoes, something weird happened. She blinked out of existence. So what is this, the end of Gweneth's radius? Is she back at Tom's Diner? Is her twin sister? So I went back to Tom's to see if she had returned to her routine. She had not, nor had her twin. Instead, she's been replaced by Carhartt, and Bald Solid Snake has been replaced by Fabio here. with nice hair. These two are now on the track. I caused a commotion, and sure enough, Fabio and Carhart exited the restaurant the same way Gweneth and Bald Snake had. I went back to the restaurant one last time. Fabio had become Fabiona, and Carhart had become Dr. Claw. Different cast, same play. I feel like I'm in fucking Westworld right now. They do the same 4-spot shuffle and the kebabs never get eaten. And these are the stakes. Night City is a meat grinder of recycled level 2 puppets. Finding a level 4 in this sea of clones isn't just a hunt anymore. It's an obsession. So let's go find our unicorn. And if I'm going to prove that somebody in Night City actually has a life outside of the player, I should probably find someone that the game itself considers important. So let's follow Jackie Wells.
Good morning, Night City! Safe and sound, we'll be right back after a quick word from today's sponsor, Factor. Presented by Night City's own new pop sensation, Static Jaw.
In a city full of SCOP and caffeine highs, I found a real fuel that don't compromise. Fresh, never frozen, right to my door. Chef-crafted dietitian, approved plates, no cooking, no cleanup chore. 2 minutes out, I'm back in the fight. 30 grams of protein just keeping me tight. Some hit 53, that's true. Supporting muscle repair recovery too. 100 plus choices every week I see. 2 vegetables minimum staring back at me. No refined seed oils, no refined sugars inside. No artificial color sweetening the balanced carbs and healthy fats in the crate. Pick up protein or calories smart to recalibrate. Consistency builds what luck can create.
I've been using Factor between brain dances and workouts, and it makes sticking to routines easy. No guesswork, no derailing the plan. Just meals that keep me consistent. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code bandercootfb50 to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year.
That's code bandercootfb50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase.
Night City is weird. Okay, where were we? Jackie Wells. There may or may not be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't played Cyberpunk and you're watching this, A, hello, you're a strange person, and B, just know Jackie lives a long life and never dies in this game. Now, Jackie is interesting for a few reasons. For one, he's a major character. The game gives him dialogue, relationships, a motorcycle, a mother, an apartment, the whole shebang. If anyone in the city should have something resembling a life outside of the player, it should be Jackie. So I decided to follow Jackie. Not during a mission, but between missions. Right after the pickup, V and Jackie exchange their usual post-job pleasantries, and then the two of them go their separate ways. From the game's perspective, this is a dead zone. There's no cutscene, no scripted escort, he just leaves. Now, depending on how you've played the story, the next major quest at this point is the heist, which begins at the afterlife, where Jackie is eventually waiting outside for you. So theoretically, he should be going to one of 2 places. Either he's heading home, or he's heading to the afterlife. Both would suggest that Jackie Wells has something resembling a daily routine. So I start following him the moment he gets on his bike, and the first thing I notice is that Jackie drives extremely slowly, like weirdly slowly. So slow that I accidentally run him over once. But this actually gives me hope, because slow driving suggests intention, a commute. It also felt like the game was throwing everything at me just to stop following him. But then Jackie reaches this bridge and he just stops. Now here's the interesting part. During the first act of this game, this bridge is actually closed off because Watson is under lockdown. So my working theory is that Jackie is trying to go home, but the path the game has chosen for him literally doesn't exist yet. He's attempting a commute through a road the game won't let him take. And once he realizes he can't go anywhere, Jackie completely loses his mind. The slow, careful driver disappears. He does this cool flip thing with his motorcycle, and then accelerates at such an impossible speed that I eventually lose him. Which means that instead of discovering a believable Night City routine, I may have just discovered something far more strange. A character who was never meant to be followed. So, Jackie Wells, beloved choom, professional mercenary, owner of one extremely nice bike, appears to be level 3 in theory. A man with a destination, just not a road that exists. But based on what I've seen here, we're going to have to bump him down to a level 2. Panic-driven potato. Sorry, Choom. But Jackie did teach me something important. If I'm going to find a real routine in Night City, I can't follow someone whose life only exists during missions. I need someone with a civilian life, anchored to 2 different places on the map. And that's when I remembered Claire. Claire Russell, bartender at the Afterlife. Now, Claire is interesting because unlike most NPCs in this city, we actually know 2 things about her life. 1, she works at the Afterlife. 2, she owns an auto garage in Arroyo. And more importantly, the game itself implies she has a schedule. To trigger the quest, the beast in me me, Claire actually texts you and says, drop by my auto shop. Sometimes I pop out for a minute, and remember I work nights at the bar. If Claire has a shift, does that mean she has a commute? So I decided to test it. I went to the afterlife at night, and sure enough, here she is, behind the bar, working. Pouring drinks and talking to mercs, exactly where the game says she should be. Which means if Cyberpunk's NPCs routines are real, eventually this shift should end. And when it does, Claire should leave. She should walk out the door, get in a vehicle, and go home. So I waited and waited. She didn't leave. I had another thought, because we actually know where Claire lives. So instead of waiting endlessly for her to leave the bar, I decided to race across Night City and beat her to her garage. If she really commutes, her auto shop / apartment should be empty right now. So I sped across the city, pulled up to her building, and checked the garage door. Locked. Which is exactly what I expected, because Claire is still at work. Case closed. Except, what if she is in here? And I thought, well, let's just take a peek. So I climbed around the side and found a way onto the roof, and eventually discovered a little skylight looking down into the garage. And when I looked inside, there was Claire. Or rather, Claire obscured. But it's Claire, inside her own home, which means Claire Russell is currently pouring drinks across the city while simultaneously lying in her own garage. So now we have Schrödinger's fucking NPCs. And with that, I decided to broaden the investigation, because maybe Claire isn't the weird one, maybe the whole city is. I'm starting to get worried there's no level 3 NPC in this game, let alone a level 4. So I started doing what any reasonable person would do in this situation. I began following random people. I found this guy doggy paddling against this vending machine while his friend just absolutely wails on it with a machete. Eventually I decided to intervene. I pulled out my gun and immediately the Super Smash Bros ran off. But something interesting happens after about half a block. They stop running, they slow down, they start walking. At first I thought they had simply reverted back into normal pedestrians, absorbed back into the hive mind of the crowd, but then I noticed they're walking in a very specific direction, back the way they came. And sure enough, they calmly stroll back to the vending machine and resume smashing it like nothing ever happened. Same positions, same animations. It feels like I'm watching actors in a stage play. While I'm watching this unfold, I get distracted by this woman over here doing this cool breakdance hover thing against the wall. I turn to look at her for maybe 5 seconds, and when I turn back, the Smash Brothers are gone, which is when the pattern finally clicks. If you skip time today, instead of the Smash Bros, there's just this one guy leaning against the vending machine drinking a coffee. All day. Then you skip tonight, and 2 new maniacs appear to wage war against the vending machine again. Different actors, same performance. And they won't despawn if you're watching. It's only if you take your eyes off that the scene changes. The wash and run over here, same thing. This woman will wash laundry forever so long as you're standing here watching her. But the moment you skip time or look away past the scheduled change, she's gone. Night City is full of performers. Every street corner is a little stage play. Actors come in, actors leave, but the scene itself never changes. Which made me curious about something. What happens if you take an actor and force them off the stage entirely? I ripped a woman out of her car near the border of Santo Domingo because I wanted to see what happens to a driver once they're forced to become a pedestrian. I scanned her name popped up as Lumila. This name. I wanted to see if I could herd her all the way to Rocky Ridge in the eastern Badlands. So I just kept nudging her in the direction I wanted her to go, to see how far the simulation would let her go. But eventually, she hits an invisible wall. She refuses to go any further. I try looking away, because I've learned people only disappear when you stop watching them, but this time something different happens. She stands up, perfectly straight, completely still, just staring into nothing. So I pull up my scanner again, but the name Lumila is gone. The scanner just reads, NC resident. Like her identity has been erased because she stepped out of her programmed loop. And she just stands here like this for 20 minutes, before eventually dropping back into a cower. I shot her in the foot, hoping to inspire some movement, and that was the end of our unnamed former Night City resident. Rest in peace, Lumila. And things just got worse for me from there. Because at this point I'm starting to lose hope in the experiment. I decided to check the routines over at Captain Caliente's restaurant. Once again, we have level 1 invincible counter help, but then I noticed something else. Out on the patio serving tables is the same Tess from Tom's Diner. And unlike the Tess at Tom's, this one isn't protected by some mysterious force field, which got me curious, because if Tess can apparently work at 2 restaurants at once, what about Tom? So I went looking, and sure enough, I found Tom, also not invincible. And then just to make things worse, I found him again, working as a server at the hometown deli. And there's a weird feeling you get when you spend 16 hours of your life actually analyzing this kind of thing. I'm a pretty pacifistic gamer. I generally don't just like blasting random people, but after a while I started to lose almost all sense of empathy for these NPCs. Not out of cruelty, just exposure. You start seeing how rudimentary they really are. And I don't want to give you the most trite observation ever, but somewhere around this point in my experiment, it started to dawn on me that the level 4, the unicorn tier, the holy grail of a fully realized Night City, was me, the player. And it was around this time that I started asking myself, why am I disappointed that none of these people are even close to real? I've been hunting for this mythical level 4 NPC, but I never stopped to ask why. What is the actual endgame here? Why do we want this so badly in the first place, this idea of total immersion? Because the direction video games are heading is obvious. What is actually stopping us from creating digital people with full histories, simulated childhoods, simulated traumas, simulated relationships, entire lives calculated before you even hit new game, so every character feels internally consistent? Nothing is stopping it. The only roadblock we have right now is rendering power, and it's only a matter of years before that barrier disappears. But if we build a world where every character remembers the past, reacts to change, and carries an internal emotional life, what exactly separates their existence from our own? You could say the big difference is that NPCs respawn, but how do we know we don't? How do we know we haven't already died thousands of times only to be loaded back into the timeline with our memories wiped? Statistically speaking, the odds that we happen to be sitting inside the one real universe are not great. When I stand alone in my room, surrounded by a green screen, pulling this footage into Final Cut to scrub frame by frame through the tiny details of these artificial lives, it's easy to feel like a god looking down on a primitive universe. But as simple as these routines in Night City might seem, maybe that's a mercy, because the alternative is coming, and it's coming soon. These NPC routines are basic, but basic might be good. It's enough to suspend my disbelief to make the city feel real. So I'm going to go outside. I'm going to feel the ground beneath my feet. And the next time I feel that strange sense of deja vu wash over me, that chilling ghost of a memory that I've been here before, I'll just tell myself what every good level 4 NPC is programmed to say. This all feels too important. This all feels too real. It has to be real.